Hello, my name is Catharyn Baird. I'm the CEO of Ethics Game. Have you ever wondered why different people have different definitions of what behaviors count for being ethical? Why we don't all agree on what being ethical is or what a life of integrity means? Today, I'd like to introduce you to four different perspectives that help us understand how each of us look at the world slightly differently as we judge how best to live with each other in integrity and in harmony. As we begin to think about how to live together, we understand that our values enhance and determine our effectiveness. I am often asked whether or not we can, in fact, have ethics make a difference. If we focus on how we grow as human beings, the answer is yes. What we look for is choosing behaviors that count for being good in the community, as well as match our own identity and sense of who we are in this world. Ethics is about translating your values into action. As we do this, we live into our values that give significance to our lives, things that are important to us. We can know them by looking at the priorities we choose, and we know other people's values by their priorities. As we live, we act on those values that we prioritize consistently and repeatedly and begin to have habits of being. Most of us have no problem identifying our core values and commitments. What is harder are looking at our shadow side and where we can be tempted. As we begin to take a look at how to live and address our temptations, we have some definitions. Your personal morality are your values and your motives. These are in conversation and sometimes in tension with ethics, those behaviors that count for meeting shared community values. And if you're in a profession like accounting or being a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, where you have licensing requirements, you will have shared and mutually enforced professional norms. All three of these sets of understandings about how to live together have to be harmonized. When I was in college, the question I asked is if ethics is so clear, if it's so black and white, if we can just follow our gut, if it's just yes or no, why are there so many different answers? And I came to understand that ethics is contextual. It depends on what's going on in the situation. It depends on which values need to be prioritized. And that is the process of learning ethical discernment. We call this the ethics of ambiguity. Every time we have a situation where values are in conflict or values are in tension, we have to decide what we are going to do. As I did my research, I discovered that we have four basic tensions that are with us all the time. The first goes across the screen. We have individual values and priorities that are sometimes in tension with those valued by the community. And we have to decide when will we follow our own conscience and understanding, and when do we need to moderate a bit in order to fit into the community, or in fact, just completely change our value set. The other one is head and heart. When do I follow my reason? When do I follow what I believe is the truth? And when do I follow my heart? See what my experience is and how the lived understanding of how to be in community is playing out. Each of those values give a different ethical perspective, a different way of looking at the world. And in order to make a truly important decision, I believe you have to look at all four perspectives. What we notice is that each of them have different values that get prioritized. The results lens, consequentialism, prioritizes free will and being flexible. The responsibilities lens, which prioritizes being truthful and being principled and responsible, we call it the deontological lens. The relationship lens, justice theories, prioritizes things like fairness, being just, good systems. And the reputation lens, known as virtue ethics, prioritizes having courage and being a good example and compassion. Each of those have a body of theorists, of people who think about what would it mean if this lens took primacy. Martha Nussbaum is one of my favorite authors. She's writing up at the University of Chicago, and she reminds us that consequentialism is individuals following their heart's desires, choosing goals to bring their life meaning. But Nussbaum also says is that we have to have permission to follow our heart's desire. We have to think about what is possible as we begin to cooperate to create the greatest good. Immanuel Kant is the theorist that we most think of when we think about deontology. He says, in order to be ethical, individuals should use their reason to determine the principles by which they should live. Kant believed that all reasonable people would identify the same principles and adopt the same duties, which we don't. And that's where we have a little bit of a problem with deontology. Justice theories take a look at our social contract. Kwame Appiah reminds us that members of the community need to use their reason to determine how goods are going to be distributed and how power will be used. And that's sometimes in conflict with our understanding of our personal duties or our personal goals. And then finally, Alistair McIntyre talks about virtue ethics being members of the community determining the character traits that represent virtuous living. As we together decide what makes a good scholar, a good teacher, a good accountant, a good business person, a good CEO, we define together what behaviors will count for being ethical in that role. So as we understand this, we wind up with the different reasons often having the same result. All four ethical perspectives believe that honesty, integrity is really important. So for the responsibilities lens, they would say, well, honesty is foundational for being a human being. As we look at the results lens, they say, cultivating habits of honesty allows me to respect myself. Justice, if we are honest, we don't have cheating. And the profession of accounting, for example, would have integrity. And then finally, in the virtue ethics lens, we rely on accountants to make financial decisions, and we trust those who have a reputation for honesty. Often we want to have the same reasons and agree on the reasons instead of agreeing on the behaviors. Many times, ethical dilemmas can be resolved by agreeing on the behavior, even if we disagree on the reason. As we begin to live into our values, we notice that small acts of moral courage or cowardice can shape the direction of our lives. So please pay attention to not only why you're acting, but what you are acting and what you are doing in order to live fully a life of integrity and value. As you begin to think about your core values, as you begin to think about what's important to you, I invite you to consider the values of the profession, your personal values, and the values of the community, and notice when they are in harmony and when they differ. Thank you.